Hello, everybody. I'm Narada, and I'm with Sacred Vibes Holistic Center. And Sacred Vibes Holistic Center, what we like to do and what our mission is to bring more sacred vibrations into everyone's everyday life. Deep, powerful tools and services and classes to really amplify all of your sacred vibrations in your life. The more sacred vibrations in your lifestyle and the more that you're living in that way, we feel, the better you will feel. This is a true holistic health plan. Now with that, we have inside the heart of that Babaji Bhakti Ashram, which is what I head and I teach. We have many classes there, workshops, etc. All of these will be starting in November. If you've been a follower of mine before, Expeditious Fool was my business. I've been teaching for quite some time. And the thing I want to talk today is if I were to sum up one thing that I teach in one word, what would it be? Bhakti. Bhakti is what I teach. So, yeah, yoga, but yoga has gotten confused over the years. You know, yoga means union with God source consciousness. That's what that word means. It means to yoke. To yoke what? To unite. To unite yourself to that eternal spirit. So therefore, it's a system and a science of processes, right? But all those system and science of processes are to bring you to Bhakti. So that's what I teach. And in true fashion, Narada, which was considered one of the original thought born from Brahman, and with his story, he roams not just earth, but he roams all these different places in complete bhakti, devotion. But it's more than devotion. Devotion, I would say, is what religions are. And religions are techniques and schools. Bhakti is what's learned from it. I'm not even going to say the diploma. It's all of the information gathered and the experiences. That is Bhakti. Bhakti is the true understanding of what everything means. Now, Bhakti is tricky. So let's talk about it. So let's see. We'll start with, there are some requirements in the Narada Bhakti Sutras that to really embody Bhakti, okay? First is that you can't have any selfish desires. That's a hard one, I know. The next is that you can't pay attention to social conventions. The last, you can't pay attention to religious conventions. Okay. Well, that's confusing. The reason why I say that's confusing is because a lot of times we have to learn Bhakti and how important everything is and what this human life is really for through using all of the techniques prior, using some of those conventions. And this is where it gets confusing to a lot of folks. It has to become a balance, right? And that's individual for each person, right? That's why it's not a one-size-fits-all pattern. Now, there is a science and a system to the body, right? Like if you're moving to Rajasic, as in your cortisol levels, right? Rajasic would be the yogic term. what's actually happening in your body is your cortisol levels are amplified at a consistent rate, which makes you anxious, makes you hyperactive, these different things. These can be noticed by somebody who's paying attention to all of them. With this, suggestions can then be made. So if you are moving in a rajasic way, there's breath techniques, there's certain body postures, certain mudras, mantras, etc., that carry vibration. There's certain techniques that you could then do that would balance out that level, right? And that's what a true yoga teacher is doing. They're not just walking you through a flow. They're teaching you how to analyze your body as well as, working with you to help you get to exactly the right technique for you. Because there are so many techniques and every individual body is different. This is why it's a lot of times to seek out somebody that can help you. Because once we get our system in line, then we are able to return to its natural state. In its natural state, it's not afraid of, and it's not operating out of these fear programs. So therefore, social conventions, it's not worried about looking weird, right? So it can think out of the box and it can really explore what's true, not just what's normal, right? And if we look at the society and we say everything's broken, or we look at society and we say that a lot is broken and we want this to go a different way, then continuing to do what is normal would just be silly, right? So as we continue, when we do practices, you go to school long enough until you learn and you go, oh, okay, now I'm done with school. I have the lesson. This is a situation with religions and techniques and things like that. You go through them and you use them until they have processed the lesson for you, until you are fully established in Bhakti. Then afterwards, you can dabble in them and continue to process your system, right, to make sure this is clear. But outside of that, everything else is not necessary, because then you're dedicated to a life of service as a whole. That is Bhakti. And the things that one has to come to understand in order to make it really easy for Bhakti, we could say the rules of Bhakti. You'd have to believe that you are an eternal spirit. You're not this body, you're not this mind. That was created, and that creator is all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful. And this is what really brings the bliss from the Bhakti. Because essentially when you are operating in that zone chemically in your body, right? I'm bringing the science behind the woo-woo. I'm not just talking about spiritual mumbo-jumbo. No. And this is also the reason why I choose the yogic path, because it is the science behind there. But when you're starting to operate the chemical structure in here and the neural pathways that are now operating at the highest possible functions, right? Because they're rooted in the vibration of God's source. They're not rooted in an individual I motivation, right? Every time we have an individual I desire, that will be met with some level of suffering, even if it brings happiness in the moment. Now, it requires a good level of consistency and dedication of your life in order to reach Bhakti, yes. But in the meantime, there are tips and tricks that you can do along the way, which will bring you closer and more understandings. But there are different ways for each people. This is why it's really good to seek out somebody who understands all of these things, so they might be able to give you specifically what might help you. This is what I have to offer for you at the Babaji Bhakti Ashram. And no, it's not all serious. We have a lot of fun yoga classes that are going on, but there's always that sacredness involved. It's not just fitness. I would say fitness is the least amount of the class. Even though we are doing asana or we're doing breath work or whatever it is, we're using the body. However, fitness has nothing to do with what we're learning. We're learning bhakti, beyond devotion. Sometimes that's not understood. That's what we're here for. We're here to work through it together. And I hope each and every one of you want to join us down at Sacred Vibes Holistic Center and come to the classes that we host in the heart at the Babaji Bhakti Ashram. I hope you all have a wonderful day on purpose and stay mindful. Namaskar.